Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Welcome into episode 199 of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Cory Puffett, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. So happy to have you join us tonight. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing pretty well. Eric, how are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah, Eric, just okay while he's on vacation down in South Carolina. Poor guy.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm not a little tired, been tired from sleeping, that type of thing. But I'm all good, I guess. I apologize. My internet down here I don't think is the best, so I might be a little laggy and glitchy at times. So
we'll do what we can. It is what it is. But happy to have you guys here with me as we kick this show off. Got a handful of things to talk about, and we're going to save the NBA talk for a little bit later in the show because we are right in the heat of the NBA Finals, coming down toward the end of that series. In fact, that series will be wrapped up by the time that we air next week's show, which will be our 200th episode, rather, which is a pretty big milestone for us. So instead, let's start with Major League Baseball. And since it's my week hosting, I'm going to start with my Yankees right off the top. New York is 5 games ahead of the field, and I'm talking the entire rest of the Major League Baseball field. And we now have the best run differential in baseball. So, the Yankees just keep on rolling. Matt Carpenter became the first player in Yankee history to hit 6 home runs in the first 10 games that he spent in pinstripes. Kyle Higashioka homered on a 35.1 mile per hour pitch against the Cubs the other day. Officially the slowest pitch ever taken yard in the StatCast era, breaking the previous record of 43.9 miles per hour, which was set just 2 months ago. So everything is coming up New York right now. And I'm not just talking about the Yankees because the Mets are also killing it in the National League. They have the second best record in all of baseball right now. So, New York is where it's at right now. Aaron Judge continues to hold a companion lead in the home run race. He's now opening a gap on the field in slugging and OPS. He's pulled into a tie with Mookie Betts for runs scored. One thing that might be a little bit concerning if it doesn't get corrected pretty quickly here is pitching, which has slipped a tiny bit of late. Last Wednesday and Thursday, Nestor Cortez and Garrett Cole both got rocked.
I'm aware.
Yeah. Evan is very aware of Garrett Cole getting rocked. He gave up 7 runs in a game. I think he only went like 3.1 innings or 2.1.
I thought it was 2.1.
It might have been 2 innings in and out. It was not a good day for Garrett Cole. Nestor Cortez at least only gave up 4 runs in like 3 1/3.
What's Garrett Cole's problem?
I don't know.
You allege to watch his games closely. What is wrong with him?
I never said that I watch his games any more closely than anybody else's, but I couldn't tell you what his problem is other than the fact that he's been kind of, not that great ever since we banned the sticky stuff last year. I don't know what else to tell you, Evan. If it's not that, I don't know what else to tell you. Eric is shoving his
very
face up
close
in the
to
camera.
his camera like he has something to say.
I do have something to say. I'm questioning why you don't watch Garrett Cole closely when he's your staff ace and he's being paid so much money and he's supposed to be this all-world pitcher because
he has been bad.
When my team had a pitcher like that, I watched every start, every time, staying late up until 1 a.m. on school nights and watching them lose 2-1. So I don't know what your problem is.
All right, so here's what my problem is with this, Eric.
Here's the excuse.
Mm-hmm.
This is the excuse. Yes, this is the excuse coming your way right now.
Can't wait.
Ever since we banned the sticky stuff last year, Garrett Cole has not been all that great. Why am I going to make a point to watch him rather than a guy like Nestor Cortez, who is in the top 5 in Major League Baseball in ERA this year? Why would I make a point to watch him instead of Jameson Taillon, who has actually pitched pretty well this year despite not being that good last year? We've got 5 pretty good pitchers on our staff right now. And I would put Garrett Cole. I know Garrett Cole is officially the ace of the staff, but as far as his production this year, he's probably our number 4, if not our number 5 guy. So why am I going to go out of my way to focus on watching his starts rather than just watch the Yankees when I can? And if he happens to be on the mound, great. If not, I'm probably going to see somebody who's pitching better than him at this particular point in time.
That's what $300 million gets you, is somebody who's the 5th best starter?
I'm not saying I'm making excuses for the Yankees for paying him that much money. I'm just making the excuse for why I don't make a point to watch him over any of my other pitchers.
Counterpoint to that, if Garrett Cole doesn't pitch better, y'all aren't winning the World Series. So there's that. Just being frank with you. If Garrett Cole is going to pitch like this, you're not winning the World Series. So it is important that he starts to pitch like the ace of the staff instead of like whatever this version of him is.
The level at which the rest of our pitching staff has performed this year, I don't think that he necessarily has to be what we paid him to be for us to have a chance to win the World Series.
Yes, he does. What are you talking about?
Yes, he does.
He's going to start two games in the
that
division series.
I think that him
and
doing that guarantees us the World Series. But I think that by the time we get to that point in the season, if he's not pitching the way that he's been paid to pitch, he's not going to be pitching 2 games in each of those series.
Do we need to look
just
past
because he was the opening day starter does not mean that he is going to be the ace in the playoffs if Nestor Cortez is out pitching him the way he has been.
You don't pay Garrett Cole all that money to be the number 2 starter behind Nestor Cortez.
You do when Nestor Cortez is pitching better and when you have the money to spare like the Yankees do.
I'm sorry. If Aaron Boone makes that decision, he should be fired on the spot. That is not how that works.
Gone.
Okay.
He'll be gone while we're raising that hunk of metal as World Series champions because he made the right call.
No,
because
that's not the right call.
Nestor Cortez has not shown any ability to handle playoff pressure. He's had a good start to the season. Garrett Cole has to be the guy. That's it. If he's
That's
not,
why he's there.
You're hosed.
That's why the Yankees brought him in, to be the guy. Unless there's somebody making $400 million that we're missing. Is that Nestor Cortez? Did he get that much money? Like what? What's Garrett Cole doing
like he's
on
amazing.
the bench? This is what he signed up for. You get the ball game 1. That's why you're the ace.
I mean, if he gets it together, I'm all for it. I want to see Garrett Cole pitch better. So far,
you think he's going to?
He ain't been it.
You think
he has not been it so far this year?
Do you think this is the best version you're going to see of him, or can he rebound?
I have not seen anything since the ban on the sticky stuff that would suggest that he can rebound. I've not seen one game that signals to be, oh yeah, he's back. I've seen him pitch pretty well at times, but I have not seen the Garrett Cole that was in Houston. I have not seen the Garrett Cole that was in New York at the beginning of last season. So I don't know. I hope that he can, but I don't have much confidence in it, which is why I think that if we get to that point where we get to the playoffs, regardless of whether Nestor Cortez is up for the playoff pressure or not, you have to put him in that position. And if we end up losing in the playoffs because of that decision, we were going to lose in the playoffs anyway. If that's where we're at and Nestor Cortez is still pitching better than Garrett Cole, and Nestor Cortez's lack of playoff acumen costs us in the playoffs, then we were sunk anyway, and we didn't honestly actually lose anything out of making that decision. And I would say that Aaron Boone made the right decision. Whether Aaron Boone should or shouldn't be fired at that point, I don't think has anything to do with that, because I've had my own problems with Aaron Boone that are completely separate But this year, I will say that Aaron Boone has done the best job managing the staff that I've seen any Yankee manager do since Joe Torre.
I mean, Cory, I just feel like you're going full. I want Iguodala in the critical situation, right? Like,
who says I want Iguodala in the critical situation?
Yeah, it's like I'm sure Iguodala is a good player, but like, hello, you have the guy right here.
Please tell me he didn't say that like this year.
Well, yeah, but he said it during the finals 3 years ago. I mean, that was greatness.
Still pretty ridiculous.
Because Iggy hit the go-ahead three, or he hit the game-winning three, or whatever, against Toronto, because they chased after Steph and he threw it to Iggy, and Iggy hit the three. So suddenly that makes Iguodala better than Steph.
Apparently. So tonight, Garrett Cole is on the mound for the Yankees, and it looks like he's already gone 2 strong innings, only given up 1 hit. He has 4 strikeouts, so that's at least a good start to the game for Evan. We'll see if he keeps that going. Nestor Cortez will go tomorrow. Yankees are, even despite those couple of bad starts last year, they still own the best team ERA in the majors at just 2.85. No other team is below a 3.0 ERA so far this season. They've got the best whip. They've got the best batting average against. On offense, we've extended our lead in the home run department with 98 of them entering tonight, which is 14 more than any other team in the majors. I was surprised to see this stat. We're tied for the 3rd fewest errors in baseball, because the last week, every day I'm looking at there and I'm like, we have multiple errors again tonight. We had 6 errors in the last 6 games, and somehow we only have 25 in our 60 games played. So I guess that's good. The Yankees are going to have their medal test over the next couple of weeks. They play 20 games in 20 days, with the next 13 games coming against teams that are combined 35 games above 500. We play 6 games against Tampa Bay, play 3 games against Toronto, and 4 games against Houston. So that's the next 2 teams in the American League, both of whom have records above 500, and then the number 1 team in the American League West. So we're going to see what this team is made of over the next couple of weeks. The Yankees have been winning a lot lately, but they've also been playing, for the most part, some pretty weak competition. They've played a few good teams, and they've beaten those good teams for the most part, but they haven't had that, a test like they're going to have over these next 13 days. So I'm excited to see what they do over the next 13 days. You're always nervous when you go through a stretch like this. It doesn't matter how good or bad your team is, but I'm excited because I think that these 13 days are going to really give us an idea of whether this team, is legit, is a real World Series contender. The record they have would suggest that this should be a World Series or bust year for the Yankees. These next 13 days are going to be what tells us whether that's, whether that should be a full-on expectation. Anything less than that is a complete and total, abomination of a failed season. Or whether, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about whether there's going to be excuses that can be made, because at this point, there's no excuses that can be made. The team is too good, for us not to be in that discussion at the end of the season. But I think this is what's going to, test the team's mettle and determine how confident the team should be going into, the playoffs when we get to that point. Let's talk about your guys' Orioles. Baltimore is 3-3 since our last show. You got a win against the Cubs. You split 4 in Kansas City. Last night did not go so well in Toronto, but
no.
Talk to me about your guys' team.
We got absolutely toasted in Toronto last night, but that's not unexpected. Not present were Keegan Aiken and Anthony Santander, because they are inexplicably unvaccinated against COVID-19. So if you are unvaccinated against COVID, you're not allowed to go to Canada. So hopefully these two fools get a nice pay cut just for being unavailable for 4 games. Makes no sense. So in one of the guys who was called up was outfielder Kyle Stowers to make his major league debut. He's drafted in 2019 out of Stanford. He got a double and drove in a run, which in the person of Adley Rutschman in the 7th inning, to cut the Blue Jays lead to 10-1 at the time. Mountcastle homered just now, and Richie Martin scored 2-0 O's. And guess who's on my bench? It was Ryan Mountcastle. So yeah, that happened. Let's see. Outfielder Heston Kjerstad made his professional debut last week in Low A Delmarva. We've mentioned him before. So he was drafted in 2020. Shortly after he was drafted, he caught COVID. And then he developed myocarditis, which, kept him out of action. So like the whole minor league season was canceled in 2020. He missed all of 2021 with the myocarditis issue. And so coming into 2022, it seemed like he'd recovered from that. And then he had a bad hamstring injury in spring training. So he's just now getting back on the field from all of those things. So I'm happy for him just to be playing baseball again, right? Like he hasn't played any baseball since before the pandemic started. Because like the vast majority of the college season was wiped out because of COVID. So, I'm just glad he's back. Let's see. Talk about Gunnar. Did we mention Gunnar Henderson being promoted to AAA last week? I couldn't remember.
I don't think we did.
Oh. Eric's saying maybe we did.
I
But
think
anyway.
so. Well, we can talk about it again. It's something.
Yeah, we can talk about it again because he's amazing. So Gunnar Henderson was promoted to AAA.
Along
He
with
hits a
Jordan
home run in
Westberg,
his-
y'all brought up
Huh?
2 shortstops to AAA.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have enough shortstops, right? Those are the best athletes.
Yeah, they both can't play, so shouldn't one be getting playing time in AA while the other plays in AAA?
No,
One
I
can play
think
third
I
base.
think Gunnar has been playing a bit of third,
Uh,
stuff like that. DH and you can't have too many shortstops, right? If you have 7 shortstops, a pitcher and a catcher, that's a good defensive team right there. I mean those are some
you're right.
athletes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so Gunnar, let's see. I believe he turns 21 years old in a couple of weeks. That's how young he is. He's the youngest player in all of AAA. He's a left-handed batter, and the knock against him was that he couldn't hit left-handed pitching. And sure enough, in his first at bat, he hits a home run off a lefty pitcher. So, he's doing pretty good. Jordan
Beginner's
Westberg, also promoted to AAA. He was drafted out of college, though, from Mississippi State. For some reason, I thought he was from Stanford. So I just wanted to point out Mike Elias's first 3 draft picks were Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and Kyle Stowers. And they're all having an impact already. So that I just think that's exciting. What can be exciting if you like soap opera type drama between rich people? So Peter Angelos' 2 sons. So Peter Angelos is an Orioles owner. His 2 sons are John and Lou, and one of them is suing the other one over control over the team. It's a giant mess. So, I think it's Lou, who's the younger brother, who feels like he's being squeezed out, or being forced out or something, and it's against their ailing father's wishes about how the 2 sons are supposed to share the team. Ugh.
do they not have anything in writing?
I mean, the Peter Angelos is still alive.
Is he not able to bring some clarity to the situation? And
I don't know. I know it's John Angelos who's been declared as the point of contact to Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball they asked who is in charge here, and they said it's John. So that's but like, it doesn't really matter. I think there was an article in the Baltimore Sun, maybe, but it only told Lou's side of the story. So it was written kind of in a clickbaity, salacious way, right? To get you like, ooh. And, a bunch of the stuff was a little sensationalized.
Sounds like much ado about nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, much ado about nothing as fighting over billions of dollars can be. We all have siblings, right? So, like, just imagine fighting with that person over a unimaginable sum of money. Like, you used to fight over controlling the TV on Saturday morning, but like, no, now it's billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, but like, I think it's a little bit different than fighting over control of the remote on Saturday morning. You have a finite amount of time to spend watching what you want to watch, and what you want to watch is only on for 30 minutes maybe. Whereas if we're talking about an unimaginable sum of money, I feel like there's enough there to share.
I mean, one would think, but apparently not. Eric, what are your thoughts on the Angeloses having a made-for-MTV beef in the newspaper?
I think it's hard to get invested in it because it's the two sons of a billionaire having it out over, like you said, Evan, huge amounts of money and control of a franchise and things like that. But it does have an effect on us, the fans, because everything starts from the top down. The functionality, or in this case, maybe the dysfunctionality of your ownership for your local franchise can determine a lot positive and or negative about your team. And
do you have any personal experience with that, with the local football team, for example?
Oh, the one that I have bailed on? Yes.
Yeah, that one.
Yes, I do, actually. Yeah, that's familiar. And, while Dan Snyder wasn't out and out fighting with a brother or a son or a wife or whatever, he certainly has been a big part of the problem. And many would say that Peter Angelos was, and maybe still is, a huge part of the issue with why the Orioles haven't been successful the last 30 plus years, which is entirely fair, but the man's also apparently seemingly near death, so you don't want to, throw dirt on him too much. But this is, I had sort of had optimism that when Pete stepped aside, and I guess whether it was by force or voluntarily, and handed the reins to John, it was always my understanding that John was going to be the heir apparent to Pete. It always felt like John had, a head for this a little bit and an understanding of what needed to be done in order to make this franchise work. And the fact that there's this, seemingly scorned younger sibling that has been pushed aside and is now getting involved, that it can't lead to anything good as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's like the only thing I hope for is that they resolve this like grown-ups, they handle it, and they can move on and not be a distraction, not make this an issue. And if it continues to be an issue, then it will only work to the detriment of the Orioles on the field.
Yeah. Handle it like grown-ups, which means doing a bunch of whining in court and appealing whatever decision gets made, and then whining about that too.
Yep. Before we move on from the Orioles, what's coming up for your
Orioles? Right. So the Orioles got 3 more in Toronto, then come home for 3 against Tampa Bay, and then they have an off day, and then resume the Battle of the Beltways Masson Cup with 2 home games against the Washington Nationals. So, things have kind of returned to normal the last couple of years. With it seems like everything is on the line between these 2 teams, and they both suck. It's right back to where we were, because I was sitting at RFK Stadium in 2006 at the first game between these 2 teams in the regular season, and both teams were terrible then too. So the more things change, the more they stay the same, I guess.
All right.
Shout out to Chris Benson, who was dealing that night for the O's.
So I think it was last week that we discussed Joe Madden getting fired by the Angels. Was it last week or the week before? I forget how long ago
I think it was last week.
But since then,
last week.
some reports have come out from various news sources, including Deadspin and Barstool Sports, that Joe Madden got his hair cut into a mohawk the day before he was fired. He got this is a 68-year-old man, mind you, decided to get a mohawk to try and inspire his team, and they never got to see it because he was fired before they could, which is just freaking hilarious. Like, what are you doing, Joe Madden? Come on.
I mean, when you lost 12 games in a row,
it'll grow
you try
back.
anything, right? Like all the players' walk-up songs were Nickelback one night. when you lose 12 in a row and when you're playing at that level, like, you do anything to try to get a win.
68 years old. It's too late
Right?
for a midlife crisis haircut.
I mean, you should have seen his hairdos when he was coaching the Rays in 08. He had this long, thick, like, light blonde, flowing something or other. Like,
I don't remember that at all.
yeah.
I do.
Yeah, when not Kelly Johnson, whoever hit that home run in that game, 162 with 2 outs to tie it against the Yankees. I think his name was Dan Johnson. Just some guy off the bench. Like, you can see Mad's reaction. I can't repeat what he said on here, but he's got this big hairdo underneath his hat that's like sticking out.
Take your word for it. But yeah, so just bizarre, very bizarre.
Baseball's weird.
Angels
man.
have won a couple of games since then, but they're still a little bit on the struggle bus. Although Mike Trout came back from his injury and hit 2 home runs the other day, so we'll see if they can start getting things going again a little bit. The Atlanta Braves, meanwhile, have won 12 straight. They're now only 5 games behind the Mets. Unfortunately for them, they lost Ozzie Albies to a freak foot injury yesterday. He swung, made contact with the ball, took 2 steps out of the box, and just collapsed.
What?
Yeah. I have not seen an update on what exactly they have diagnosed him with, but sounded like they expected that he could be out for some time.
He's on the 60-day DL already.
Oh, he is already. Okay, I
yes,
missed that.
I'm very aware of this.
Well, Ozzie Albies is on
Yes.
Eric's fantasy baseball team, so I figured Eric might be a little bit more updated than I was. But yikes!
I mean, yeah, the fact that I couldn't play him today is a pretty big update. That one of the best second basemen in baseball is unavailable, and I got to find somebody else to put in that slot.
Well, I couldn't start
this
Juan
is the
Soto
second-
today, but at least he should be back tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't care about that. So, I mean, my guy's done for at least 2 months. I don't care about Juan Soto. Get out of my face with that, But this is the second year in a row that I've lost a Brave to a freak injury, and it's no less disappointing the second time. I mean, obviously Acuna was probably better than Ozzie Albies, at least in terms of fantasy production. But but more importantly, forget my fantasy team. Like, 1, my team's not very good. I'm probably not making the playoffs at this rate. I'm 3-6, and 2, these are numbers on a spreadsheet, and these dudes don't know us and don't care about us. What matters is Ozzie Albies is one of the best players in baseball and one of the most fun dudes. Like, he was great at the All-Star game. He's great when they mic him up during the Fox broadcast whenever the Braves are on there. And it's a shame that he's going to be missing, especially as Acuna's just coming back. Like, you really like to see that sort of dynamic duo be a dynamic duo, and they haven't had the opportunity to do so in quite some time due to all the injuries. So obviously wish him a speedy recovery. He's a great player, and like I said, a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, definitely bummer there. I mean, echo what Eric just said. Ozzie Albies is a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to listen to, and definitely sucks for the Braves to lose him. He's a big piece of what they've got over there. Speaking of fantasy baseball, Evan, your team lost again to another Cory, no less.
Yeah, my team's down bad. It's just hitting a rough patch here. You know, as well as my team had been hitting, its real strength was starting pitching, and the starting pitching. Looking at you, Garrett Cole, you $325 million bum. See what happens when you wash your hands, everybody. You know, you're much less likely to get COVID, and you know, your fastballs just go straight, just meatballs. So yeah, my team's built on starting pitching, and some people get injured. Have some people come down with a really bad case of the sucks. You know, so when that happens, you just don't win. Manny Machado was, I mean, he was like the best baseball player in the history of baseball for a few weeks. He's cooled off significantly. Mookie Betts caught on fire and then was immediately snuffed out. He scored negative points on the week last week. You know, it was
Sounds
just,
like Mike Trout 2 weeks ago.
yeah. So, you know, I still have confidence. Oh, Tim Anderson. I have Tim Anderson on my team. He hurt himself doing something.
He's also got some
More than
off
one
the
way,
field-
apparently.
He's got
Some-
some
Yeah,
off
he
the
hurt
field
himself
Baby mama
stuff
drama.
going on too.
You know,
Yeah.
cheating on his wife or something like that.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Tim Anderson? Somebody else I want to complain about is Tony La Russa. Can we talk about how much Tony La Russa sucks? He's
Yes,
terrible.
we can.
Oh my God!
By
What?
all means,
They have
take the
no
floor.
business hiring him. First of all,
Pretty
And
sure we
then,
talked
so-
about this when they hired him.
Yeah. What was that? 3 years ago?
Something like that.
Yeah. No business hiring him. And then, so like the White Sox are mediocre at best when they should be the best team in the American League. You know, then and like when your whole is less than the sum of the parts, that falls on the leadership. Okay, you got to get. You're not squeezing the appropriate amount of juice out of your orange here. You know, there's no one else to blame other than him, right? Like the general manager has assembled this great team. They've been building and rebuilding for better part of 10 years at this point. Like it's go time now, and you have this guy in charge of it who the game has passed him by. He's terrible. I can't stand Tony La Russa.
Yeah. Evan says the White Sox are mediocre at best. The White Sox are 3 games below 500. They're 6 games back in the American League Central. They're not even the number 2 team in that division right now. They're behind both Minnesota and Cleveland. Oh, and they have a minus 52 run differential. How they're only 3 games below 500 is astonishing to me.
Oh, okay. I guess mediocre at best was a bit of a stretch. They just
I think
straight
that
up
was just
suck.
a little bit
best
generous.
Is doing at best is doing some work there for sure.
Yeah.
What's the
For
Orioles
sure.
run differential for
The
comparison?
Orioles have a better run differential. They're minus 48.
Are you serious?
And you are 10 games below 500.
And the Orioles lost by 10 runs last night.
There you go.
Wow. Tony La Russa should have been fired a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing worse
Yeah.
than the Orioles. If you're doing anything worse than the Orioles, you gotta go.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's unacceptable. I mean, come on. And
Like- Yeah. Go ahead, Eric. Oh my God.
so this takes me back to last year a little bit. Evan's still mumbling over there, which I don't blame him for. Yeah, I remember last year when the White Sox were good, when they were supposed to be good. Everybody thought the White Sox were going to be good, and I heard a bunch of old heads on TV, on podcasts, particularly Tony Kornheiser's podcast. No, not this one. We were all haters. We stood our ground, and we are being proven right now. That Tony La Russa's exceeding expectations, and he's doing all this stuff that us millennial haters said he couldn't do because the game's passed him by, and he's a brilliant manager, and y'all whippersnappers got to show him some respect. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm looking at this right now, and I'm seeing, he's been there handful of years. I'm seeing more underachieving than I am living up to expectations. Why am I supposed to be thrilled by that? You know who I'm impressed with, and who
Buck
I will
Showalter.
always be impressed with is Buck Showalter, because yes, the Mets had talent on paper, but they've had that the last couple of years, and it hasn't borne any fruit. Whereas this year, not only is the team playing well, it looks sustainable, and they look like they're actually, enjoying being New York Mets instead of just waiting for it to all fall apart, like it inevitably happened last year. So,
And
that's
wait till
what
the Mets
good
get
managers
two
do.
Cy Young winners back in
Right.
there.
I mean, we're talking about a team that doesn't even have Max Scherzer right now, has not had Jacob deGrom at all so far this season, and yet they are still 5 games ahead in their division, still seem to be very confident in what they can do this year.
They seem competent as well, which is not what we
something
usually
that
get from the Mets.
No.
Look at you, Mickey
Well, and you look
Callaway,
at-
for example. Jeez.
And you look at the Mets and the way they handle their business and the way Buck sticks up for his players, sometimes to a fault. I think he got suspended for a game along with the pitcher for doing some beanball tactics, which nobody on this podcast approves of. But his guys are constantly getting drilled. Like, it's been ridiculous how often the New York Mets have been hit by pitches, and Buck was tired of it, so he stuck up for his guys. Whether his methods were appropriate or not is up for debate. We all would say it's probably not the right move, and we all agree he should have been suspended for that game. But the spirit of it is what counts at sometimes. And meanwhile, you've got Tony La Russa getting, siding with the dudes beaning his guys because he agreed with them throwing at their guy because he hit a 3-0 pitch over the fence. And I'm like, I don't care what your record is. That's a sign of talent. But things go off the rails when you start losing. If you have a bad 5-game stretch, you have a bad couple of weeks where things are going awry, the manager has to be there to sort of rein you in and get you refocused. If you've done things in the past to alienate yourself from those players, where when the times are good, they kind of just tolerate you, and when the times are bad, they want to beat you over the head with their bat, then, that's not going to fly because you've got to survive those valleys, right? Like the Yankees right now are cooking. But Cory knows at some point the Yankees are going to have a legitimately bad stretch where they lose more often than they win for a couple of weeks. And now their talent will probably pull them out of it, but do you believe Aaron Boone is a guy that can just steer the ship right? Probably might be a little hesitant given the past. So
yeah, I mean that would be a situation where if we start to pull ourselves out of it, it's probably because of the players more so than the manager.
Right. And that's my point, is that a manager's job is, to be reductive, is to manage. It's personal management. It's dealing with these people. You pushing the right buttons doesn't mean squat. And Tony La Russa has done a poor job of that at times too. But it's about getting your guys to buy in. It's keeping your guys focused. It's a 162-game grind throughout the season, and the season has been shortened effectively because of the lockout. And so we're playing more games, fewer days off, more doubleheaders, et cetera, and you've got to be able to lead your team just purely by being a guy that people respect and want to go out there and play hard for every day. And when you act a fool like Tony La Russa does, and when you're just this grumpy 77-year-old fart, you're going to lose everybody.
I remember when the Orioles were playing in Washington and Manny got drilled by somebody, Papelbon or something, and Buck escorted Manny down to first base and then had his arms folded facing the pitcher, glaring at him, and like say there is a dust up, to borrow a phrase from somebody, obviously a professional baseball player isn't going to have any issue in an altercation with somebody who's 60 years old and like 5'8" or whatever. But it's the gesture to me that's important, right? There's like Manny Machado is like 6'3". He's a giant, basically, but there's Buck standing in front of him saying, if you got a problem with him, you've got to come through me first. And Tony La Russa doesn't do that, or hasn't done that.
And I'm glad you pointed out that situation because, again, the players follow suit. That's the essential quality of a manager. And in that situation, it wasn't just the fact that Buck was standing there with Manny while they resolved whatever ejections and other situations. The entire Orioles team was lined up outside the dugout, standing there, on watch to make sure that something doesn't get out of control. There wasn't a gnat in sight. They were sitting in the dugout milling around because they didn't give a damn about Matt Williams or anything like that. They're just like, let's get the season over with. This is because neither of those teams made the playoffs that year. Like the Orioles missed the playoffs, they went 81-81. The Nationals were supposed to win the World Series for the 10th year in a row and didn't even make the postseason. But one team was all in. They just didn't have the talent. They didn't have the pitching. The Nationals went off a cliff and didn't care anymore because they didn't give a damn about who was running the show.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about the standings just real quick. We're not going to get super deep in it. We'll save that for ends of months. But right now the Yankees lead the American League East by 8 games. It's the biggest gap between a first and second place team in the majors right now. The Cardinals have taken the lead in the NL Central away from Milwaukee. Milwaukee has had quite a cold stretch, so 2-8 in their last 10 games. So St. Louis has the lead there. Both teams are about 10 games ahead of third place in the division. So it's a two-team race out there.
Who is third in that division?
Pittsburgh, believe it or not.
Oh, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Pittsburgh is past I guess they were already past the Cubs because Pittsburgh is on an 8-game losing streak. The Cubs are only on a 7-game losing streak. But Pittsburgh is still in third. So that's how things are going out there in the Central. In the National League West, that is the tightest race in the majors. Dodgers and Padres are virtually tied atop the standings out there. So the Dodgers have played 2 fewer games than the Padres. So they lead by percentage points, but it's like 0.004 of a percentage point in their win percentage. Dodgers are on a 3-game losing streak though, so the Padres are, they've caught up in these last few games. But that's going to be an exciting race. The Padres are playing like we thought that they were supposed to last year, and like they kind of were early in the season last year, but they cooled off far earlier than this. Last year around. So it's good to see them playing well, and they're doing so without Fernando Tatis Jr., and it looks like they're going to have to continue doing so without Fernando Tatis Jr., at least for the foreseeable future, because his CT scans came back and did not show the progress that they were hoping for, and I don't think that they gave a specific timetable, but they did say that they're going to have to push back his return beyond what they thought, when they thought they might be able to bring him back.
Padres at Dodgers is June 30th. So mark your calendars for that. 10 Eastern.
So, this Tatis news concerns me because if you recall, it kind of gives off a vibe of what happened to Mike Trout last year, where Trout injured his shoulder, I think, in like early May. And they said, 6 weeks. And then they said after the All-Star break, and then they said mid-August, and then they said he ain't coming back. So, like, whenever you see something like this happen where it's just like every so often they're pushing it back, that first one, that gets the ball rolling. I mean, if it's not healing according to what they had hoped to see, well, that tells me it's not healing, right? Like, it's not exactly going to be something to say, oh, well, it's going to speed up tomorrow, though. Something is more wrong than they thought, because people understand how human biology works and how, injuries heal. And there's expectations based off of what you think the injury is. But if it's worse, more severe, whatever, then that tells me that they don't exactly know what's wrong with him. And that leads to even more uncertainty, leads to longer timelines, and leads to Tatis potentially just not playing at all this year, which would be obviously a crying shame for anybody who likes baseball, because if you like baseball and you don't like Tatis, you don't actually like baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. It could also be, he could be doing things that he shouldn't really be doing that are causing the injury to heal more slowly. He may be, aggravating things or straining things more than he should be. We know that he was seen playing soccer some time ago, and probably not the best time to be doing that when you're healing from an injury and trying to make it back to the professional baseball field.
He was doing that on the field before a major league game.
Like in the stadium?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they were messing around the outfield, and he was kicking a soccer ball around and fell over. And it wasn't exactly like hey, I fell over because like an 8-year-old tackled me and type of stuff. It was like I took a spill.
Yeah.
And he looked like he landed on the part of his body that's injured. And everybody looked at that and said, "Are you out of your mind?"
So he landed on his head. Doesn't sound like he's that bright of a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Tatis should be staying in shape, right? Like he should be, keeping up with the cardio and stuff. But the issue here with playing soccer before a game is it's the optics. It just doesn't look good, right? To be
it's the
caught
optics, and also
goofing around.
If he's taking tumbles because of it, then he's clearly not just out there just kicking a ball back and forth between people. Like he's mostly trying to like do like dribble moves with it, and like I don't know, maybe I don't even know. He's doing stuff that he should not be doing with a soccer ball if it's causing you to fall down. It's not hard to kick a soccer ball and not fall down.
Going back to my elementary school experience, that's not the case. But
okay, for a professional athlete,
yes, for an adult, for a professional athlete, for somebody who is not Charlie Brown dealing with Lucy, you should be able to kick a soccer ball without falling down if that's all you're doing.
Yeah, and another part of it is, Evan, you mentioned the optics. Like you can't forget how he got here. Right? Like this wasn't a baseball related injury. This wasn't some freak accident like a car accident or something like that. This was him being a dummy on a motorcycle. And not only did he seem to be nonchalant about the fact that he suffered an injury on a motorcycle when they asked, did it happen when you crashed? And he says, which time? Indicating that he's crashed that bike multiple times. And now
also indicating that he didn't learn from the first one.
Yes. It seems like the lessons aren't sticking all the time with.
Has
with
Manny
Mr.
Machado
Tatis.
yelled at him recently? That needs to happen again.
Well, he hasn't been around in the clubhouse to get yelled at in front of the camera for us to see, so who knows? But Manny's kind of held them afloat and then some so far this year. So, but I mean that's obviously not going to be something you need to count on. We know that one guy can't do it all. I mean, look at Mike Trout, look at the Angels. So you kind of like to have your franchise player back, at some point, so you can win.
Yep. I mean, that's what Manny was saying when he was yelling at Tatis, right? Go play baseball. You're the best in the world. Go play baseball. Guess who's not playing baseball? It's Fernando Tatis Jr.
So we'll move on from
Fernando
baseball.
Sr. out there. He's available, isn't he? What's he doing?
We'll move on from baseball. After this quick update, the Yankees just took a 2-0 lead on a double by Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Nice.
He drove in 2 runs, but he only gets 1 RBI because Gleyber Torres reached on an error.
Oh, come on. I need all the rotisserie league. I have Kiner-Falefa. My team is just sinking like a stone.
Why do you have him on your team? Do you have like
I
16
drafted him
people
late.
in that league?
It's a 12-team league, but each team has 30 players on it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Well, then.
Orioles added a run. It's 3-1.
Nice. All right. So, only bit of NFL news on our radar that we actually feel is worth talking about this week is Lamar Jackson. He showed up to mandatory minicamp. Still does not have a deal. He's looking like he's going to be playing on his 5th-year option. But Evan, any thoughts on him showing up?
I mean, it's a non-issue that he showed up. It's only an issue if he didn't show up to the mandatory portion of the off-season program. Obviously, the bigger deal is his contract situation. So he's on the 5th-year option for this year. And then, I mean,
time is
if they
ticking
don't
on getting a new deal because you can't negotiate that in season in the NFL.
Oh, okay. Well, he's obviously not gonna walk as a free agent, right? Like the very least the Ravens are gonna do is do the Kirk Cousins thing and franchise tag him a couple times, but like that's not advantageous for the Ravens, right? Because then he can just walk after that year. And, that eats up a big, big, big chunk of your salary cap if somebody's on a 1-year deal like that for $1 bajillion. So apparently the holdup is on Lamar's end with his contract. Take the money, and Lamar's like, I don't know. Not really feeling it. Maybe Lamar needs to feel like he needs to deserve the money or something because they haven't won the Super Bowl since he's been there. But you don't even need Hugh Jackson to come watch the tape. He deserves the money. He's one of one, and you pay those guys.
Yes, you do, if you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to the NBA. We are now 5 games into the 2022 NBA Finals. Golden State has a 3-2 lead over the Boston Celtics after taking games 4 and 5. The first on Boston's home court, and then last night in California. Couple of big games. Eric was not very happy with you or me, Evan, when we turned on the game on, what was that, Saturday night to watch? Friday night. Yeah, Friday night. We went out to the lobby of our hotel to play spades, and we turned on the game, and Eric was not very happy. Didn't want to watch. He was thanking us afterwards, though, because he was happy to see the win. He would not have been happy if he had to sit through a collapse on Golden State's part. But he didn't have to see that. And he didn't actually end up seeing a collapse yesterday. He saw what looked like a collapse, a mirage of a collapse yesterday. But Golden State stormed right back and took Game 5 pretty easily. So let's talk about these last few games. Game 3 in Boston. Golden State comes out kind of flat, and Boston gets that win. That was the first game that was played after our last show. And I don't think any of us felt too good about Golden State's chances after Game 3.
No. Game 3, it looked like the Warriors got hit by the typical, switch of venue avalanche that can happen in Game 3. Right, so that was sort of why, I kind of talked myself into thinking the Warriors weren't toast, because I was like, okay, if you look at the schedule of events, the Warriors lost Game 1 on that ridiculous fourth quarter spree that the Celtics had, and then they took care of business in Game 2, and then they got blitzed in Game 3. I'm like, if they don't blow that Game 1, you're like, it's 2-1. This is exactly what you expect to get a quick 5-game series out of this. So you just have to get one road win, and suddenly you're back to balanced. And I was a little bit worried just because Golden State's effort in Game 3 was poor. You didn't get the hustle plays from Draymond Green that you saw in Game 2. You didn't get the strong rebounding effort, or at least, that we would see later from Andrew Wiggins in Game 3 either. And Kevon Looney inexplicably only played 17 minutes. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense that the Warriors didn't give him more time, especially with Rob Williams cleaning up on the glass. But even in that game, the Celtics were red hot. They were hitting all their shots. They were at home. It's kind of what you expect. But the Warriors tied the game and actually took the lead late in the third quarter after Steph Curry went on a barrage. And that kind of gave me some thoughts. They could still win a game in Boston. It's not like they can't do this. They just didn't finish well. And it felt like a little bit like, they put so much effort to catch up that they kind of got gassed at the end of Game 3. Whereas, we didn't obviously see the first half of Game 4. And we were out doing things at Barico Sol, which was delightful. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, the second half, we turn the TV on. The first thing we see is Steph Curry hitting a circus 3 in front of Al Horford. And, it was a sign that Steph was not going to be denied, which is something that the Warriors have on their side. Is they've got best player in the series, one of the best players of all time, a guy that can turn it up and say, hey, I'm winning this game tonight, and you can't do anything to stop me. And Steph's one of the guys that's capable of that, and he had that moment. It's probably there was some conversation on the interwebs about, well, this is the first time Steph Curry's ever done something like that. That's not true. This isn't the first time that Steph Curry has taken over a finals game or a playoff game that they absolutely had to win and gotten his team over the hump. But this was certainly the best performance he's had in a game like that, where his team actually did get the win. So, obviously if this series goes Golden State's way, which looks like it's probably going to, that's going to be the signature game on Steph Curry's resume when we talk about his legacy and his impact historically in basketball. You're going to go right to Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, game 4 was a really important win for them also because one of the things that I think made us feel so discouraged about their chances following Game 3 was that not only did Steph have a good game, I mean, he scored 31 points in Game 3, but they completely wasted a really good game by Klay Thompson. He scored 25. And it's not like Klay has been consistently really good through the playoffs. You kind of want to take advantage when he's hot. And they didn't in Game 3. So for them to be able to bounce back in Game 4, for Steph to play the way he did, score 43 points, was absolutely huge. And then we come into Game 5 last night, and, you know, Draymond plays well. Klay doesn't play all that great. Steph can't buy a 3. He went 0 for 9. The first time in his NBA playoff career that he did not score a single 3-pointer. He had hit at least 1 3 in each of his first 132 career playoff games. He had scored multiple 3s in his previous 38 playoff games. He hadn't gone a single game period without a 3 since November of 2018, more than 200 games ago. So, a historically, I don't want to say terrible performance because Steph did hit some shots in the paint, but his mid-range game was not there. He was short on everything. He was short on everything from 3. That was not the typical Steph Curry. And somehow the Warriors still managed to win. And that somehow, his name was Andrew Wiggins, because Andrew Wiggins was phenomenal last night.
Yeah, he was great. I think that it's kind of the Celtics got themselves into such a conundrum that they almost played themselves yesterday with how they played defense on Steph, where, Game 4 and pretty much throughout the entire series, they were perfectly happy to play drop coverage on him and say, okay, you're going to have to be the guy that beats us because it takes Draymond Green basically out of the offense if he can't operate out of the short roll on a 4-on-3, because Draymond can't create offense for himself. He has to have it created for him when they blitz Curry. So they said, you know what, we're going to make them – that's effectively neutralizes Draymond Green's effectiveness on offense, and he becomes a nothing out there. And, but, of course, the problem with that is you're letting Steph Curry cook you at that point, and you're at his mercy. And so it looked like in Game 5, they switched it up a little bit, and that might have taken Steph a bit out of his rhythm initially. He didn't take very many shots early in the game. He got that one transition layup, but he didn't really get the open looks that he was getting before. And the first couple 3s he took, he launched from 35 feet just to take one because he hadn't taken one yet. And that's probably not where you want to start. You want to build up to that when you get into a rhythm. Then maybe you'll start trying some of those logo shots. But, right out of the gate, it felt like a force. And so I think that really kind of threw him off his game. But like we talked about, the benefits of when teams defend him like that, when they doubled Steph, I think they doubled him 7 times when he got screens. So on those 7 times, the Warriors scored 14 points. That is massive offensive production. That's a 200 offensive rating. That's definitely not what Boston wants to be giving up. But that's the nature of the Warriors' offense, is that's when you get guys like Andrew Wiggins, who, by the way, did not shoot well. He was 0 for 6 from 3, but he was still able to get good looks from 2, in part because he's good and because he played very well, but also in part because he got some open cutting lanes because of all the attention that Steph was getting. And you see guys like Gary Payton, who I think scored 15 points off the bench. And Gary Payton is out there to play defense and occasionally cut to the basket for a bucket. The reason why he was able to score as many points as he did was because, again, the Celtics said, all right, we're going to go with the sellout to stop Steph defense. And I think that the Celtics, the reason they didn't implement that earlier wasn't so much just because they figured that Steph wouldn't be able to sustain his offense, but because that's just not what they do, right? There are times where, strategy dictates you do something that you simply don't have the personnel or the experience to do. It's why you didn't see people posting up Muggsy Bogues. He's 5'5". You could put a guard on that's 6'2". It's why don't you just go post on him? He's because I don't know how to do that. Okay, that's never been something a 6'2" guard has ever had to do, is to post somebody up. So it's like telling the Celtics, whose entire DNA was based off of We can guard 1 through 5, no problem. We don't have to double. We can always switch. And then they found out, oh, wait, we actually can't. And that's sort of what's put them in the position, because Golden State hasn't actually had a super explosive offensive game yet. Like, Steph has had an individual great game, and the Warriors, the ancillary pieces, for the most part, had a good game in Game 5, but they haven't really come together yet. And if that happens, the Celtics are toast, right? Like, if they have one game where they get off and they score 115, 120 points, the Celtics have shown they can't hang with Golden State scoring that many points. They had the fluky Game 1, they had the barrage in Game 3, but, you know, the last 2 games, they haven't cleared 100 points. And Golden State, meanwhile, is consistently 104 to 110 points every game so far this series. So I feel like Golden State's defense has figured something out as well. I feel like their offense is going to be what it is. It's got a very high floor, especially given what the Celtics defense likes to do to people. And honestly, like, I've been pretty cagey with what I think's going on this series, who I think's going to win. This is going to bite me in the ass, and I'm still really nervous because until the job's done, it's not done. But the most confident outcome I have in this series is the Golden State's going to win Game 6. They're going to go into Boston and they're going to beat them and finish the series on Thursday night, because it feels like the Celtics have got nothing left. I mean, they look gassed in the fourth quarter. Jason Tatum airballed 4 shots in the second half. He had no legs left.
He did.
And we also have to keep in mind the Celtics have been playing 7-game series every single round. And sort of the detriment of playing this type of defense on Steph is you have to chase him around for 4 quarters. That's exhausting as well. And that sort of takes your legs from you in addition to that. And Jason Tatum, he looks a little bit unconfident. Like, he had some big shots. He got hot in the third quarter there, but over the course of a game, he seems to let doubt creep in, like a lot of young players could. Jaylen Brown was a no-show in this game. Al Horford hasn't shown up. Rob Williams is extremely effective when he's on the floor, but he's struggling to stay on the floor because of that knee injury. Like, he was clearly the best player for the Celtics yesterday. He was a plus 11 when they lost the game by 10 points. So that means that when he was off the floor, they lost by 21. So it was an ass whooping when the Time Lord was out, but when he's on the floor, they were having a big advantage. So I think that I don't see how you can be confident in Boston at this point, because I feel like the resolve that they've shown has been broken a little bit. I mean, we heard all the time this postseason about how Boston hadn't lost 2 games in a row to anybody. They followed up every postseason loss with a victory. Apparently, they hadn't lost 2 games in a row dating back to the regular season since like February. So this is sort of what they probably talked themselves into. I mean, they hear this stuff too. And there's no way they didn't come away thinking, even after they lost Game 4, they probably went into Game 5 thinking, yeah, that sucked, but
we don't lose 2 in a row, so
yeah,
we're going to win tonight.
We can go get this. We've done this all season.
Now you've lost 2 in a row, and you got to feel like going into Game 6, they're going to be a little bit less confident. They're going to be like, oh, well, we just lost back-to-back, so they might beat us again.
It feels like Boston's definitely going to come out and try to, land a haymaker early. And if Golden State either withstands it or just straight up stuffs it, and they go on a run themselves sometime in the late first quarter, early second quarter, Boston could fold. And that happens all the time in these series. I mean, the 2-2 loss in Game 5, it has a profound effect on teams. Like, it consistently, like, the percentages of which the team that wins Game 5 wins the series doesn't align with standard probabilities. It is something that it feels like once you get that late in a series, teams are like, man, we're up against it now. And more importantly, the team that has one win to go to win a title, it's like, we can win this tonight, let's do it. Like, sometimes you see in earlier series when you've got a home game in your back pocket, teams might say, we don't have to win this one. But when the championship's on the line, hell no. People are trying to wrap this up tonight. And that's probably what's going to happen in Game 6. And, they cited the stat that I think 22 out of 30 teams that won Game 5 coming off of a 2-2 split, those teams won the championship. That's about a 73% win percentage. But that doesn't really tell the true story, because I did a little bit of digging today. And over the course of the history of the NBA Finals, they've alternated or switched up formats where it's been 2-3-2 or 2-2-1-1-1 like it is now. Mm-hmm. Well, out of those 8 times that the team that went down 3-2 won, That happened 5 times where the team that went down got 2 home games, right? So they were on the backswing of the 2, so they could say, hey, we're down 3-2, but we've got 2 at home now. We survived the trip to wherever. Now we're coming home for 2. And that happened 8 out of the 30 times that the situation could apply, and the home team won 5 of them. That's not the case here. So if you remove those from the equation, that number drops to 3-19 for the team that loses game 5 and has to then go try to win on the road in one of the 2 games remaining.
That's really rough. Because, I mean, you look at Boston right now, they're thinking, okay, I mean, we could, we've got home court for game 6, which is great. But if we win that slugfest, we're going to be exhausted, and then we're going to have to go on the road to play in Golden State.
Back to San Francisco.
Yeah, there's always a psychology. Like Draymond Green even talked about it during the series against the Grizzlies, where they lost game 5 in that big ass blowout. It was like 55-point game at one point. And they asked Draymond, like, how did you feel about the importance of wrapping it up in game 6 versus having to go on the road again? And Draymond said it's not just about the fact that game 7 would be in their house and they would have home crowd advantage. It's the fact that I'd have to get on another plane. Like, it's one more flight I have to get on. And there's a psychology to that where if you're Boston and you're down 8 or something and it's the third quarter, or Golden State's gone on a run and your crowd is stunned silent, and you're thinking, do I really want to try to claw back into this game and wear myself out just to get on another cross-country flight to go back to the Bay Area where we're probably going to lose anyway? That definitely creeps in, because you see it happen all the time where teams exchange, even when nobody can beat anybody on the road, until game 6. It happens a lot. Like the Lakers did it to the Nuggets back in 2009. The Nuggets consistently held home court. They kicked the Lakers' ass the 2 games in the Pepsi Center, and then they lost game 5 in a close one in the Staples Center, and they went back to Denver and just said, that's it. We're no mas. We're going to fold it up. And it feels like everything is going Golden State's way. They've got, certainly the psychological momentum. Klay Thompson is probably going to have a good game because he always does in game 6s. It's hard to imagine Steph Curry's going to play that poorly. And now because I think game 4 galvanized the Warriors role players to play better because of what Steph did. And they said, damn, that guy just carried us to a road win in the playoffs to get us back in this series. We got to help him out. And then they did, because Steph had a terrible shooting game, but everybody else stepped up. Now everybody's on the same page. We're all ready to go. Whereas the Celtics have got to be thinking, damn, Steph Curry shot 0 of 9 from 3 and we still lost by double digits. What the hell happened? And I don't think they're going to have the steam to get it done in game 6. And even if they do, in game 7, anything can happen. But Golden State's there's been so much conversation about, I actually think Boston's the better team. They're just giving the series away. I'm like, no. Don't give me that crap about how Boston's the better team. What is there to indicate they're better? They're losing the series. They're giving up more points than they're scoring. Away. Yeah.
That's not a thing.
And this idea, it's like, they keep turning the ball over. I'm like, well, turning the ball over is part of, basketball. Don't do that, right? And it's a skill to not turn the ball over. It's a skill to have a more tight handle so people can't steal the ball from you. It's a skill to make better passes and better decisions. It's part of being a good basketball player. I think what people mean by this is they look at the 2 rosters and they say, well, look, you've got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Grant Williams, Robert Williams. You've got these guys that are 2-way players, effective on both sides of the ball. And you looked at the Warriors roster and you'd say, okay, after Steph Curry, how many Celtics would I take before I got to the second best Warrior? But that's nonsensical. You don't build a team based off of, how good are you in a vacuum? You build a team based off of how they fit your scheme and the personnel around you. This team is built around Steph Curry, and I talked about this before on here. This is a very defensive slanted roster. Like, Draymond Green is there to play defense. Kevon Looney is there to play defense. Gary Payton is there to play defense. No, Andrew Wiggins is there to play defense. He's a better defensive player than offensive player at this point. Like, the only guys that you would say are legitimately offensive threats are Steph, Klay, and Jordan Poole. Everybody else is out there pretty much to play defense. And yet the offense still works because Steph Curry doesn't need a bunch of guys that are good on offense to get them buckets, because Kevon Looney can make a layup, right? Draymond Green can make a layup if you just, he does that little handoff move where he tricks Robert Williams. Well, he's going to make that. He's a professional basketball player. Yeah, and he does that a lot because there's a fear factor of both Steph and Clay that creates opportunities for less inclined offensive players. I mean, at that point, yes, Draymond Green, is he as good as Jason Tatum? Of course not. Is he as good as Jaylen Brown? No. But when he's playing right on this team in this system, is he as valuable as those guys? Yes, he is. And that's the difference. You can't just say, well, we've got more talent. Who cares about talent? They've got Steph Curry. He's better than all y'all combined. That's really what it comes down to. He is more valuable to that team than anybody on Boston. It's not even close. And, Bomani Jones talked about this a little bit on his podcast where he said the Celtics feel like a team, we can all relate to this because we were just doing this, they feel like a hand of low spades. You got a bunch of low spades in your hand, but you ain't got no trump cards. You don't got no jokers, or in our case, since we're playing white people's spades with no jokers, we're throwing aces and kings as our trumps. But, Golden State's got a trump card. They've got a guy that controls the whole damn offense and has you on a string, he's manipulating you to his will. And that's something that Boston simply can't do. They don't have that guy. Andrew Wiggins is putting Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum in hell. Draymond Green is putting Jaylen Brown in hell. And the rest of the guys are playing their part. So, I don't see how this is a better team from Boston. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So last two things that I want to get your thoughts on before we move on from the final series. Draymond Green has fouled out 3 times now in these 5 games of the NBA Finals. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And, does he change the way that he plays on defense going forward? Do you feel like those foul outs are earned? Because I didn't feel like his last foul yesterday was necessarily earned, but just holistically, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you're a guy who's tapped with being an undersized big man, which is what Draymond is, you're going to inevitably draw a lot of fouls. So him getting into foul trouble in this series doesn't come as a shock. But also you have to keep in mind that Draymond Green does a lot of screening. And when you set a lot of picks, you pick up some ticky-tack fouls on the offensive end as well, which is that's the worst thing you can do is go pick up fouls in that situation where you're not even defending. And so sometimes that happens as well. I don't think it's a huge deal because it's an anomalous situation. Draymond Green normally doesn't foul out of games. The fact that it's happened 3 times. I think yesterday, honestly, you said it, the 6th foul was ticky-tack. There's a reason why he implored Steve Kerr and basically threw a temper tantrum for him to challenge it. And I figured they wouldn't overturn it because by the loosest definition, it was a foul, but it probably shouldn't have been called on the floor. But I don't think Draymond was reckless yesterday. I think he just happened to get 6 fouls. There are other times in this series where he fouled out where I'm like, he's out of his mind right now. He's in his own head because he's not playing well, and he's out of pocket. I think that he's gotten past that. So I wouldn't be too concerned about him. And honestly,
I feel like
Draymond's – go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like there might still be a little bit of a reason to be concerned because it was funny for sure, but like that moment where he's like trying to chase down the ball from Jason Tatum when there's already been a timeout called. There's no reason for you to have the ball if you're Draymond Green in that situation. And yet he just keeps following Tatum down the sideline into the Boston bench area. And I loved Jason Tatum's look as he stood on the sideline because he was just like, what is going on here? Like, what? Like, are we a bunch of 5-year-olds on the playground? Like, give me the ball. Give me the ball. Like, we called timeouts. Nobody needs the ball right now anyway. Why are you trying to take it from me? And, there was no foul called there because there shouldn't have been a foul called there. But that does make me feel like there's still plenty of potential for Draymond Green to get a little bit out of pocket, a little bit careless with how he defends or how he plays offense, and maybe puts himself in situations where he's going to take more fouls than he needs to take.
My concern with Draymond Green and fouls isn't personal fouls, it's technicals, right? Like, how do we know that he's not going to get himself teed up like twice quickly, by barking at the refs or whatever. Like, what, has that behavior changed? What's the latest on him
He
not
definitely
acting
still
a fool?
likes to talk to the referees.
Yeah, I think that after game 2, which was the game that made all the headlines because of Draymond Green and his antics, he definitely was more subdued in game 3, and I think that worked to his detriment because he played with less force. He wasn't really bringing it in that game. But since then, he's gradually kind of ramped up the energy. Like, he got benched in game 4, right? Like, we were watching that portion where it was about 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and Steve Kerr sat Draymond Green down because he couldn't count on him in that moment. It's like, Draymond's not playing well. I'll put him back after he takes a quick breather, and hopefully he'll refocus and come back and have a positive impact on the closing minutes of the game. And he did. He played very well in those last 3 minutes. He grabbed key rebounds. He played good defense. He did exactly what we talked about when they trapped Steph at half court. He fed the ball to Looney for an easy layup, and that was the dagger for the game. And I think that Draymond, while he can be certainly over the top with his antics and has diminished to the point of almost uselessness on offense when he has to be tapped to score the ball, I think that there's still a level of savvy to his game and understanding of the situation where I wouldn't worry about him getting teed up and tossed out of a game. He knows the boundaries, and it pisses a lot of people off because he knows those boundaries and he exploits them. But, there is concern about – I'd be more worried about the stuff that he's doing, getting in his own head, where then he starts making mistakes on the court and having bad possessions that, when you're on the road, it only takes a couple of possessions to get that crowd back into it. And that's where you can see a game slip away from you when you do dumb stuff like that. But I wouldn't worry about him getting thrown out of a game. And honestly, the Warriors have done such a good job outside of Draymond Green with Kevon Looney, with Gary Payton being back. They've got enough Bulldogs on their team where if Draymond Green goes out, they've got guys that can come in and hold it down. It's not like the Celtics are just torching the Warriors' offense or defense while Draymond's off the floor. They've got other guys that can back him up. And the Celtics offense, I think, honestly, just isn't good enough to really take advantage of the defensive quarterback not being out there. They seem like they don't have an offensive quarterback, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. So the other thing I want to talk about briefly is ESPN analyst Brian Windhorst called last night's win a checkbook win for the Golden State Warriors. And it seems like pretty much all of the sports world is taking him to task for that comment. But I figured, we're hosting a podcast here tonight, the day after that game aired. So why not let Eric air out his thoughts on this as well?
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing out the fact that Golden State has the highest payroll in the sport. I don't. It's a fact. They have the highest payroll, but the way Windhorst was portraying it was like there was something unsavory about it. And to me, that's where I felt like he was pushing an agenda to suggest that the Warriors have some unearned advantage here. Or, and honestly, the owners apparently have been having fits over the fact that, the Warriors are able to do this and continue to win because they're willing to pay their guys. And to me, what bothers me about this was that what Windhorst was saying should have had a celebratory tone, to be honest. He was talking about how, this Warriors team exists because of the patience, really, and the willingness to, stay the course, even though it was costing Joe Lacob a lot of money when after Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson got hurt in the 2019 NBA Finals, Kevin Durant leaves in a sign and trade. They trade for D'Angelo Russell. But at that point, Draymond Green's approaching 30, diminishing offensively. The Warriors say, we're still re-signing you to a max deal. Klay Thompson just tore his ACL. They said, we're re-signing you to a max deal. And then they trade for D'Angelo Russell, who is also on a max deal. And they're able to do this because everybody is under their umbrella at that point because of the Kevin Durant trade. They got that piece back. They didn't acquire any of these guys as free agents. So then they make the move for Andrew Wiggins, which a lot of people saw as just a way for the Warriors to get a pick because D'Angelo Russell was not fitting well with the team. Frankly, I think D'Angelo Russell sucks. I don't think he's a good player at all. Like he's not just a not really good for this team. Like he's not good. But the Timberwolves were salivating to get him, and that didn't work out for him in the offseason, so they went and had to trade with Golden State, so they gave up their lottery pick and Andrew Wiggins to make the money work, and everybody treated Andrew Wiggins like he was a throwaway, and I believe I said on this podcast, which, I might have been the first to arrive on this, where I said, I think that even if you take out the pick, this is going to work out for Golden State because Andrew Wiggins provides something that the Warriors are missing when Kevin Durant left. Obviously not to the level of Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant's an all-time great and Andrew Wiggins at this point was a notorious bust. But I said, okay, he's got some offensive skill. He's got great athleticism. He's a former number 1 overall pick. And now you're putting him in a position where if he's able to grow with this team, he's going to be at best the third scoring option. He can be something in that role, whereas D'Angelo Russell couldn't be something in that role. And I figured if he shows some defensive ability, he's going to be effective in a small ball lineup as well. And sure enough, where are we? Andrew Wiggins has been the second best player on a team that's probably going to win a championship in the next couple of days. So
yeah, and he's played very good defense. I mean, yesterday,
yes.
You could make the case that he might have been the best defensive player on the floor for Golden State. And Gary Payton II played very good defense yesterday, but Andrew Wiggins held Boston.
Jason Tatum.
Yeah, Jason Tatum specifically to 0 for 3 in the fourth quarter as the primary on-ball defender for Golden State. He played really good defense all game yesterday. He's led the team in rebounds at least 3 of the 5 games, if not more. He led the team in scoring yesterday. Like, he's playing really good ball right now.
Yeah, and again, going back to the checkbook Warriors or whatever we're calling them today, according to Windhorst, everybody and their mother said this is just a trade piece for Golden State to dump a contract or something like that to get some better pieces down the road. And they really just wanted the pick, which they turned into Jonathan Kuminga, who, to his credit, looks like he's probably going to be a phenomenal NBA player one day. He's just not really ready for prime time. He's 19 years old and, kind of got a lot of work to do because he's a kid. But the fact that they got both of those guys out of it looks like a huge win. But Windhorst was basically, he even said, I don't want to hear about, this underdog story of Andrew Wiggins. He's making $32 million a year. I'm like, it's not all about the money here. It's also about the fact that this guy was labeled as a bust, dismissed as being a legitimate NBA player, and then now he's playing extremely well at the highest level on the biggest stage. That's a big story, right? Like, if Steph Curry hadn't been so incendiary through the first 4 games, you could legitimately make the case that Andrew Wiggins would be in the running for Finals MVP at this point. You can't make that case because Steph Curry's been that good, but you've got to give credit where credit is due here, and I feel like that was dismissed in order to make some ham-fisted argument that Golden State is somehow playing not above board by paying all these dudes money. The league basically told you, we want to reward teams that build their team through the draft and can hold on to their guys if they're willing to spend the money. Now think about this. Do you really want to see an NBA dynasty go the way of the dodo because somebody left because you couldn't pay them? No, go beat them. Okay, the reason why this doesn't usually work out is because guys like Draymond Green and Klay Thompson aren't supposed to be good anymore. And you know what? They're not. Like, if we're being honest, Klay Thompson's played well the last few games. Draymond Green has had his moments, but they are not consistent contributors. They're certainly not guys that have earned their paychecks in this playoff series and the amount of money they're earning. And that's no shade to Klay Thompson. Obviously, he's been dealing with a gajillion injuries, but nobody would have said this Golden State Warriors team is unfairly stacked coming into the season, which is the implication when you say, look at how much money they're spending. Normally people would say, look at how much money they're spending on this not so great talent. But the fact is they committed to these guys because namely Draymond and Klay Thompson have been a part of championship teams. They know what it takes. And they've committed to Andrew Wiggins because he's earned it. And this idea that, well, most teams would have just said blow it up after they sucked in 2020 and were mediocre in 2021, but not the Warriors. They just kept spending money. Like, why is that bad? Like, why is it bad that they said we want to get everybody healthy and see if we can run it back before we blow it up? And then they're running it back, and now we're in the finals and one game away from winning a title. And guess what? Next year they're going to be favored to win the West again because they're probably bringing this team back one more time. Why is this bad? Why is this something that needs to be corrected or criticized? I just don't understand. I understand where he's coming from because he's a hater, but that's also what bothers me about Windhorst is the fact that he's not Stephen A. Smith. Okay, he's not Skip Bayless or Max Kellerman. He's not a guy who goes on TV for his takes. He goes on TV to be a reporter and a straight to the point analyst, and he was absolutely not that last night, and he hasn't been that all postseason. I'll never forget the clip on First Take where Patrick Beverley was on there discussing the Mavs Warriors series in the Western Conference Finals, and Patrick Beverley's talking about how Golden State's going to win and they're going to win easily. He was right. And so he's discussing the merits of the series, the matchup, and everything like that. And suddenly someone chimes in off camera. He's not even on screen. They don't even have him in a panel saying, "Who's guarding Luka?" And I'm like, what the hell is that? He's not. Who said that? And it's like, then they have to go quickly cut in Brian Windhorst because he was so pressed to say something about how Golden State's not that good. He's been like this all postseason, and honestly, I find it unprofessional. I really do. Like, if Woj was acting like this, I would say the same thing. If Shams was acting like this, I would say the same thing. This is unprofessional behavior for a guy who doesn't seem to understand. Nobody cares what you think about this. Nobody's here to hear you bloviate. You're supposed to get scoops. So go get scoops or get off my screen.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the last thing that we got to talk about today, which is the trip that we all took this past weekend. So the three of us, along with friend of the show and occasional guest host for tennis discussions and stuff, Sean Kennedy, we all went down to Durham, North Carolina this past weekend for just a little bit of bachelor weekend fun. So I'm getting married in just less than a month now, and decided that we would all go down there and hang out. And my other groomsmen besides the three of you is Rashanda's cousin Toriano, who is down there and owns a restaurant down there. So we all want to go down there, a little bit easier for him to participate in some of the activities. And we had a really good time. Got down there on Friday, went pretty much directly to Boricua Sol after we checked into the hotel. Toriano treated us to some delicious food. We all got soul bowls. We got some sort of like chicharrones or something. It was really good. It was like fried skin on chicken. It was absolutely delicious. I could snack on those all day, every day. And they had some wings and other stuff. It was absolutely delicious. It was a really nice day to just hang outside outside the restaurant and eat and hang out. And then Saturday was the kind of packed day. We went to Bull City Escape and did an escape room out of it was called Lunar Escape, and that was a lot of fun. We made it out with 6 minutes to spare. And then after that, we went to Dame's Chicken and Waffles. Had to show you guys that spot. That was delicious. What'd you guys think of Dame's?
It was good.
Food was very good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way they cook their chicken, and the waffles are really good. Just a nice atmosphere. So there was a little bit of a wait because it's a pretty popular spot in downtown Durham. So we got a chance to walk around, and you guys got to see the former field of the Durham Bulls before they moved into their new athletic park. And then we went to a Carolina Flyers AUDL game. So, I've been familiar with the AUDL for quite some time. When Eric and I first started doing sports talk stuff back when we were at the University of Maryland, and we were on the All Sports crew on WMUC Sports. The DC Breeze, which is the local AUDL team, they were going into, I think, their third year of the league's existence, and they were going to be playing their home games on Maryland's campus. and they asked for WMUC Sports to be the official voice of their home games. And our station manager was going to be the play-by-play guy, and he reached out to the full station and asking if anybody was interested in doing color commentary.
Was that Ryan Wormelli?
That was Ryan Wormelli, who you're familiar with through all the Orioles stuff. He's been on an Orioles podcast before, and
O's Uncensored.
Yeah, O's
great.
Uncensored, and he still tweets about the Orioles all the time. Really good dude. So I answered the call. I've spent a week or so just binging as much footage of AUDL games and just ultimate frisbee in general, learning the terminology and the rules of the game and everything. And so I spent a season doing color commentary for their home games, and that was a lot of fun, and I became a big fan of the sport. Admittedly, I don't watch a ton of AUDL, and so even this weekend as we were going into the game, I'm not as brushed up on some of the rules, and certainly not all the rules changes that have taken place over the last 6 years or so. But I was excited to go to my first AUDL game where I was not there to call the game. I was there just to be a fan. I was excited for you guys to experience your first AUDL game. So I want to give you guys a chance to kind of talk about what you thought of the sport.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start off by saying it's more interesting to watch than soccer, right? So soccer
that's a start.
Yeah,
It's a low bar, man.
That's a very low bar.
We'll start there. It's better than soccer. I was entertained. I had played a little bit of ultimate frisbee, in our cross country practices and stuff.
Yeah, we used to end every season by playing a big game of ultimate frisbee in November. I'm hoping to bring that back this year.
Yes, I could jump higher than all of y'all. Can't put my finger on
Evan
why
was really
that was.
good.
What are we say? Are we saying something about us Caucasoids here with the white man can't jump thing? Is that what you're going with?
I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Got to check the proof is in the potato salad, I guess. Got to check the tape on that. Because I mean, it is what it is. I couldn't throw the frisbee in the slightest, right? Like if I was playing defense and knocked it down, I would just leave it on the ground and run away. Like, what am I supposed to do with that thing? I can't throw it. I can catch it. But yeah, so I was familiar with it a little bit. I was entertained. It was fun to watch. It's fun to watch, high levels of athleticism during competition. No matter what the sport is. I guess except for soccer. Yeah, except for soccer. Just that stuff. And golf. No golf. So yeah, I had a good time at the game. I was entertained. I imagine we'll get to what happened at halftime shortly. I would go to another game. Are the DC Breeze playing close by? Or are they playing in Northern Virginia somewhere?
No, so they play on Catholic University's campus.
Oh.
So they're close by for me. They're like a 15 minute drive for me.
Oh, well, where I live, this place isn't close to anything.
No.
Yeah, you have to get on the red line.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's the nearest metro station.
Yeah, that's what I'm
30
saying.
miles from here.
Yeah, go down on 270 and get on the red line or something.
So what did you think of the game, Eric?
I mean, I had seen some of the stuff that you had shared on Instagram, so I kind of had an idea of, how compelling some of the plays could be, the skill level shown with the ability to not just throw the frisbee, but the ability to get open, the ability to run the frisbee down, make catches, things like that. Obviously very impressive.
Some of the driving catches and blocks are just they're amazing.
And for a sport like this, it kind of reminded me a little bit, and not in a bad way here, of soccer in the sense that, for one thing, for somebody who doesn't know anything about the sport, it looks like it's just a bunch of dudes running around. But you obviously know there's some plan. There's a strategy. There's plays. There's something being drawn up or thought up or called out that, an ignorant fool like me wouldn't know anything about. And so just kind of seeing the mechanisms and everything come together. And like Evan said, watching anybody that's elite at what they do is fun. except for soccer. So, it was a surprisingly, I don't want to say surprising, like I was surprised, but it's for people out there who might not appreciate it. It's a surprisingly good spectator sport. Like, you can get a lot of entertainment out of just seeing what these guys, or if they have gal leagues, gals can do. And I thought that being there live was fun. Obviously, a lot of alcohol consumption going on, especially because the guy kept bringing me free drinks, which is cool with me. But, at the same time, I'm trying to watch this game and maybe try to understand what the hell's going on. And after two 16-ounce beers at 31 and fully lightweight at this point in my life, there's no hope of that. I was talking smack, yelling flop and all kinds of stuff, just being the peanut gallery like a good fan would be.
Oh, we definitely got into the chants too.
we were the ones carrying the show. Like, we were there. Like that was our deal. You give us enough alcohol, some of which was free, and we're going to be yelling and screaming, carrying on.
We kept rhythm with the chants. The guy doing the PA announcing actually commended us on that, so that was cool.
Well, that's what happens when you've got two guys that were in chorus, one guy who both plays an instrument and dances. We know how to keep time. It's kind of a requirement to be able to do those things. So,
what instrument do you play?
I play the guitar.
He plays guitar.
Oh. You know this. I've got like 3 of them. You commented on why do you need 3, and I told you.
Oh, I mean, I thought people just had guitars. I don't understand guitar culture at all. I have a friend who has like 7 or 8 guitars. I'm like, why?
Well, I don't collect them. I got the one, and then I got a better one, and I got an acoustic one. Those are my 3. I don't need any more.
Yeah, so for halftime, we were able to go down on the field and participate in a little halftime contest. So it was us and then a group of 4 women who were at the game as well. And we went head-to-head in a contest where you had to shoot a wet sponge from a slingshot at somebody, and that other person had to catch it in a disc in the bottom part of the frisbee. So Evan and Sean held the ends of the slingshot rope, and Evan shot it. And Eric shot it, and his first shot went about 15 yards behind him. It was hilarious. He's like looking for it. He's like waiting for me to find it and throw it to him. And we're like, dude, it went behind you.
I knew that it didn't go out to you. I thought it stayed in the pouch.
Yeah, you also looked in the pouch at one point.
Yeah, well, but I checked the tape with Hugh, and the sponge only went backwards about 10 yards, to be clear. If it had gone back 20 yards, my drunk ass running for it might have passed out. So
it wasn't the Rams snap against the Buccaneers.
No,
30 yards back.
I didn't have to put on my 7.5 40-yard dash on display there to run this thing down.
And it wasn't like Ben Roethlisberger in that playoff game where he's looking at the center. You pick it up. No, you pick it up.
No, I was on it, and once I got used to figuring out how to launch it, making sure the sponge is entirely in the pouch, right? Like, I didn't want to have anything on the outside because then it just wouldn't fly. Then I had to just kind of get the level of force and tension required to actually get it to you without sending it over your head.
You said a couple of them way over my head.
Yeah,
I almost nazed one of them.
Yeah, there was a learn because I kind of hoped that maybe Cory can catch that one, but there was definitely a learning curve with figuring that out. But eventually, I started giving you some decent ones.
Yeah,
I peeked over it,
and then once you started giving me some decent ones, it turned out there was a little bit of a learning curve to catching it too, because the sponge, like it doesn't. It's not like a baseball where the weight is consistent throughout its flight. Like, as the sponge flies through the air, it's losing some water, so it's actually getting lighter, and it was like falling earlier than I was expecting it to. So I kept coming up to it, but then I would hold the disc out and the sponge would fall just short. So I'm out here like trying to catch something that's just gonna like a beanbag or something, but it doesn't travel the same way a beanbag does. So the last one, I actually came forward, like I deliberately came forward a little bit further than I thought I had to, and just barely caught it.
Yeah, I peeked over at the other team, and I had
They were
sort
like
of
trying to
two
catch it with the
competing-
disc and their hand. I was like, isn't that
Yeah.
cheating?
Well, even so, I had two competing thoughts. I was like, there's no way in hell they're ever going to catch that sponge. That girl has no idea what she's doing. But then I also was thinking, I was like, this isn't the first time that Cory would have lost to girls in an athletic competition during halftime. So this might be a problem for us.
So for the uninitiated like myself, could you please explain what that means?
Okay, so at a Maryland game, I don't
Maryland
remember
basketball?
Maryland basketball. They have I don't think they do it anymore. They haven't done it in a while. They've got sort of the musical chairs themed halftime thing where it's 4 competitors and they put out 4 chairs at half court, and each person sits in a chair, and then they say basically on your mark, get set, go, and each person goes and has to take a basketball and either dribble it or not. I don't know if they even have to dribble, but you got to go make a layup and run back. And while you're running to shoot your layup, they remove one. Sort of like musical chairs, so there's only 3 available. And it's basically a process of elimination as they whittle you down to a winner. Well, the competitors were Cory, Sasquatch, who you guys know, obviously, and 2 girls that we didn't know. And so it started off where Cory didn't finish in last, but he did lose to both girls. Because he successfully was able to beat Sasquatch because Sasquatch launched a ball off the backboard so hard that his layup attempt was so bad, like he panicked as he was dribbling to the basket and somehow just boom, flung it.
Some sort of.
I'm pretty sure I missed my
maneuver.
my first layup on that one too, but he was so bad that I was able to get my rebound, put it back up, and make it back to the chair easily.
Yeah, I don't know what you were doing because I was watching him and you went the other way. But what I saw was the ball came rocketing off the backboard. The ball hit the backboard so hard on a layup attempt that the ball landed on the free throw line. It was 15 feet away from the rim, which is where the ball was supposed to go into. And so naturally he was unceremoniously bounced. But then, now it's 3 people, and Cory decides he's going to get slick, and he rolls up to the basket. Instead of just laying it up and kissing it off the square like, fundamental basketball, he decides he's going to scoop shot finger roll this thing. And Cory's bark was about 10 times better than his bite because he missed, and it wasn't that close. Well, the girls came right down and laid it up, and you got beat.
One of their balls hit mine because I took my time laying it up. That one of their balls hit mine out.
That's not an excuse.
It's not. No.
That's not an excuse. That was bad.
Just saying. That's why it missed. It would not have missed if I'd been all alone. The problem is I took my time, and
why don't you dunk it then?
We were not. Well, Cory can't dunk. Yeah, 6'2" Cory can't dunk, and we'll never let him forget it. But
remember, Evan could outjump me when we were playing Ultimate Frisbee.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my thought was at the time, because Cory and I had just started actually being friends at the time, so I was like, I don't want to roast him too hard for that, but that was bad. That was my thought. I was like, I'm gonna leave him alone because we're not really there yet. Where I'm just gonna be like, are you serious? What was that? But so be lucky that didn't happen like a year later, or else you would have never heard the end of that. That would have been something else.
But yeah, so that happened. We did win the halftime contest though, down in Carolina. So that was cool. And then that night, we went to a pizza spot in downtown Durham. I forget the name of the place, but Toriana recommended it, and it was very good pizza. And then we went back to the hotel, and we played some Imperial Assault. So thank you to Eric's brother Greg for packing that up so that we could play one mission of that. That was pretty fun. I would play it again. And then Saturday, Eric left.
Sunday.
Hutchins
Eric
Garage.
left before I even saw him because he had to hitch a flight down to where he is now in South Carolina. Evan, Sean, and I went back to Boricua Sol, so Eric missed out on some more delicious food.
It was an abject disaster getting down here, but whatever.
Yeah.
The part that blew my mind, Eric, is that you had never had collard greens before. And I guess maybe it shouldn't have blown my mind, but it did. It did. I'm like, what?
Evan. You have to understand. You've got a lot of white friends. And
Yes.
this is the reality of having white friends. We are uncultured swine. So, keep that in mind. Anytime you think that I've done something or seen something or participated in something, there's a pretty good chance that my lack of melanin affected that from happening. So
sounds like an excuse. That's no excuse.
I feel totally ashamed of myself,
I mean, it's just my point of view is that like y'all were. I mean, the food at Barriqua Sol was delicious. Don't get me wrong, but like y'all were oohing and eyeing like it's some sort of not extravagant, but like what is the word? Like
exotic?
When somebody exotic. Yes, I was gonna say like when somebody has a tiger as a pet. What is that word? Some sort of exotic experience. Like, ooh, look at this. There's macaroni and cheese that's not out of a box, and there's collard greens. Wow, like, yeah, it's
okay.
Like
I've had
but
good
to
mac
be
and cheese
fair,
before.
like
I'm not gonna say
their
that.
mac and cheese is some of the best mac and cheese. It's definitely better than Dame's mac and cheese. Their collard greens are way better than Dame's collard greens. Like, I like collard
didn't
greens,
have
so I
either
got
of
them.
those
But like
things.
Dame's collard greens are not very good. Like the collard greens that they have at Barriqua Sol is phenomenal.
I describe it as in China they call Chinese food. Like so,
Well, Chinese food, I don't even think that they like make what like the Chinese food that we have here in America.
The
Right,
point
come on.
is I'm so used to eating like that all the time. Like it was like, oh, this is so special. I'm like, yeah, it's good. This is what it is.
This is how people eat. What are y'all
Right.
doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like the thing is, when we first got to the restaurant, I was peeping the menu, and generally when I get food, I usually get chicken. But this is a when in Rome situation. And I was like, this is a pork place. I know that they'll do chicken for me, but I don't want to be that guy. So I got the pork, and I obviously had plenty to drink too. So that actually enlightened the senses in this case instead of dampening them. So when I first took a bite of that pork, I was figuring, okay, I'll get through this pork. It'll be fine. It's not my favorite, but whatever. I took a bite of it, and I was just like, oh, knee buckling good stuff. And I was like, yeah, that was great. Like, yes, Evan, at least I felt like Dan Orlovsky when he was eating bland food, like when he was eating stuff with actual seasoning and spices on it. That's how I felt.
Orlovsky thinks whole milk is too spicy.
Yes. I have a palate. It's not like I'm useless, but my experience with
Love you, Dan, but
Southern comfort soul food is a little bit lacking, to say the least. And but I'm perfectly happy to correct that because that food was fantastic, and trying new things is always fun.
Yep. So speaking of trying new things, it wouldn't be a complete trip to North Carolina if we hadn't stopped at Cookout late one night. And stop at Cookout we did. We finally did Eric right and got him a milkshake, and he tried to pretend like it was terrible.
I joked that it was terrible, but I'll be straight with you. That wasn't like a world-class milkshake or anything like that.
It was a good milkshake, though.
I'm going to be honest with you. Next time I go to
What are you talking about? It was underwhelming.
Oh, man.
The tortilla takes away the crunchiness of the bacon.
Who eats crunchy bacon?
What?
Have chewy bacon.
Ew. No, your
Gotta
bacon
taste like meat.
If your bacon is not crunchy, you're not doing your bacon right.
You're doing your bacon exactly wrong if it's crunchy.
No.
Crunchy bacon is like a saltine cracker. There's no meat in there. You've incinerated it beyond repair. Like,
No,
what is
you
this?
can get your bacon crunchy without like burning it to a crisp.
Ugh. Yeah, took the crunchiness away from the bacon. It's meat. It's supposed to be kind of chewy.
Not bacon.
I mean, do you eat crunchy steak? Like,
That's
what?
completely different.
Yeah, it's the crunchiness of the bacon. Like, no, it's supposed to be chewy. You gotta feel like you're actually eating something.
Yeah, and Eperico Soul, your boy, got on the dance floor briefly. I
Eric
did do
did.
that. Apparently, nobody was paying attention, which
No,
is probably
I was busy playing
yeah.
tag with Devin.
Yeah, but yeah, I got out there. Salsa night was a hit. I was like, well, I gotta dance at least one song out here. I can't be doing all these dance lessons and things and not actually dance when people are dancing. Like that's not how that works.
Yep.
You gotta go out there and show them what you got.
So.
But yeah, I really liked the escape room. It's funny about the escape room. I'd never done one before.
Yeah, this was Eric's first. Evan, Sean, and I had all done at least one before, but Eric had not.
Yeah, and so I felt like I was the dum-dum of the group because I felt like I was, I caught on a little bit more slowly to some of like, what's the objective of these puzzles? What the hell are we doing? But I eventually contributed. I solved some stuff, and
Well, I'll also say that a good escape room will kind of do that to even somebody who has done a few escape rooms. Like for me, I was trying to kind of figure out what the point of some of the puzzles were because they're kind of hiding what you're looking for and
Right.
what each thing is going to solve, within the grand scheme of the puzzle as a whole. So I think that there's a little bit of that all of us were going through.
Yeah, and the thing is, like the whole time I was thinking about, okay, I started trying to gather all the thoughts in my head of like all the puzzles we solved, and I realized I was like, wait, how did we do that? It's like, oh right, I didn't even do that. I was off here solving this puzzle, so I was like, I don't know how y'all came up with that, and y'all probably don't know how I came up with some other stuff that I did. So
Yeah.
it was just like having the group there to kind of divide and conquer was cool, and I would have been furious not only for you but at you if we didn't get out because you flubbed the last clue and didn't read the numbers right. I'm glad I went and checked it because I was like, no, that's a 5. It's not a 0.
I mean, it's tough though when it's like when it's either a 5 and an O or an S and a 0. Like
I had no problem deciphering what the numbers were. I don't know what you were doing, but yeah, I'm glad I took a look because I was like, this has got to be it. There's 4 numbers on here. It's a 4-digit code, and we've done everything else. Like this has to be how we get out of here. So that was good. I felt like I got to help get us across the goal line at the very least. I was Mike Tolbert with my fat ass gut here, just kind of bulldozing across the goal line and getting the touchdown there. It didn't really contribute a whole lot else. Like I solved a couple of things, and I fell ass backwards into one of them because I guess it quote unquote malfunctioned. But I was about 30 seconds away from solving that puzzle anyway, so I don't feel bad.
Yeah, the host of the escape room seemed like she accused you of just having your elbow on the correct button at the right time when, like, I don't know what you did because I wasn't looking, but it seemed like you were, like you said, close to solving it. And the door popped open.
Yeah, I had figured out because that was the one with like the 4 planets and the pictures on the wall.
Yeah.
I had figured out that those aligned with the yellow, green, red, and blue buttons, and that they were in that order. And I had also written out the numbers that were on the ping pong with each associated planet. I would have figured out this is the order in about 20 seconds, but then it just popped open, and I was like, okay, I guess I solved it.
Yep.
I'll take it.
Yeah, but no, it was.
Of course, like that actually created a bigger problem though, because then we didn't know what the hell the ping pong balls were for, so we kept trying to figure that out. So, well, what is this for then? What are we doing with this?
Time on the ping pong balls after
ping
that.
Pong balls. Yeah, I found that little blow dryer thing. Like Cory, you figured out there was ping pong balls in that pipe.
So I got my fingers stuck
stuck.
about 2 minutes in like this. There's like this little hole on the bottom of this metal pipe where these ping pong balls are in it. And apparently we were supposed to find a blow dryer to like blow the ping pong balls up out of it. Instead, I was trying to like get enough force to like push the ping pong balls out of the pipe. And I got my fingers stuck in there. And it was stuck for a good 30 seconds, like trying to like wiggle it out and like
You're
push
gonna
the
go get
skin
some dish
closer
soap.
to the bone to pull it out. I was getting a little worried.
Butter. Like you were stuck long enough to the point where it wasn't funny anymore.
It still was funny.
No,
to
it
me.
was funny once I got out. It's funny now that I've gotten out. I'm not still down there.
Still have to call the fire department.
So, but no, it was a fun escape room. It was a fun time down there. Really glad we were able to make that trip. And looking forward to going back down there in just a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I broke out the celebratory gritty after we won the slingshot contest. I was like, I'm on a football field, or what basically seems like a football field. We just won something, and I'm drunk. I'm doing the gritty. That was non-negotiable at that point.
Did we ever find out one of the players for the Dallas Legion got injured on
I still don't
Saturday?
know what the
And
prognosis is
as
on
we were
that.
I felt so bad because as we were
I did
walking
too.
off the field after we won the halftime thing, we're just walking to the sideline and there's this guy just laying on a table under a tent
With his ice pack on
with
his
a
knee.
big hunk of ice on his knee, and I'm like, oh, I feel so terrible for him, right? Like, he's not having any fun and he's hurt. Like that just seems like it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have not seen any updates, and I don't see any updates on their Twitter feed. So
I looked at their Twitter too.
I have
guess
no
he's
idea.
guess he's okay.
Hopefully,
I don't even know
he's
his name.
okay. Hopefully, he's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, whoever you are, just saying this out to the whole world, wishing you a speedy recovery to whatever happened to you.
Yep. So, I think that wraps things up for this week's show. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening right now live on YouTube or if you're listening on one of our podcast apps, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, Amazon. You can find us on all of those, whichever one is your preference. If you have another podcast app that you like better that we're not on, be sure to hit us up. You can email us at thesportsballers@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter at sportsballers18. You can find us on Facebook and message us there and let us know what the other podcast apps are that we should be on, and we will look into that. In addition to following our group podcast Twitter page, you can also follow us individually. I'm at Cory Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. Evan is at Evan_Ash13. Any shout outs before we get out of here?
Shout out to all those businesses who hosted us this past weekend. Carolina Flyers, Bull City Escape, Boricua Soul, Dame's Chicken and Waffles, and Cookout, obviously.
Plus the Millennium Hotel.
The hotel, yes. Millennium Hotel.
Yeah, letting us sit out and yuck it up in the lobby, watching sports and playing cards and dice.
Screwing around. What are we doing? Who are these guys? There was nobody else in the whole hotel except us, it seemed like. And we're just taking up the whole lobby. Well, not the lobby, but the lounge or whatever.
Yeah.
Just stealing stealing control, I guess, of the TV, just a public TV somewhere. Like, yeah, we'll just sit right in front of it and watch the game instead. We had a fun time.
Yeah. Eric?
Sort of a follow-up, I guess, shout out to, like Evan said, everybody involved with the weekend. And, of course, you can't forget, one business we stopped by on the way down, McDonald's. How can you forget about McDonald's?
Oh, right, the Golden Arches.
And I'm glad that y'all made it home safe. It was a long trip and all that stuff going on. And nobody died or hopefully jerked the wheel too much or anything like that. But it looks like everybody's safe and sound, which is good to see. So
yes.
When I get back up to old Merland, we'll probably do some stuff.
We only stopped twice.
Only twice. Look at that.
Yes.
Look at that.
Shout out to all the businesses down there. Shout out to Toriano Fredericks and his wife Serena and Devin for treating us to Boricua Soul on Friday night, and to Toriano also for treating us to pizza on Saturday night. Shout out to Sean for being the real MVP and driving the whole way back from Durham. And shout out to you guys for putting up with me singing along to my tunes. I tried to keep it at a fairly low volume so it wasn't too crazy, but shout out to you guys.
I mean, we were
one of the songs has been stuck in my head ever since. So,
which one was that?
Apparently, it's called "Feeling This" by Blink-182.
I Oh, so you're slightly more familiar with their oeuvre now after the you combine that with the Fury 325s playing a Blink 182 song.
Oh, they played a
Every-
Blink 182 song?
Yes, they did. It was the second song.
Oh, I didn't even know. Yeah, I'm very much familiar with their oeuvre. My criticism of your music selection, Cory, was it seemed like all the songs were exactly the same. Just over and over. There was, the same drum beat and the same guitar came in shortly afterward. And I'm like, oh, it's just, here we go again.
Oh, I don't know.
No, but, that's my uninitiated, untrained ear.
Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, then
After we finish with that, yeah.
Well-
Hey, by the way, Cory, your music sucks. Have a good night.
Well, thank you. So with that, we'll get out of here. Thank you again so much for listening. This has been episode 199 of the Sports Ballers Podcast. For Evan and Eric, I'm Cory. And we'll catch you next week for episode 200. Eric will be hosting, and we'll see you then. Take it easy.